Rivers State has been in the news since last year over what is now called the political imbroglio, or the theater of the absurd, as some refer to it, as well as the elections that are coming up in Edo State and Ondo State. That is also going to be in focus on the program today. We'll be speaking with one of the aspirants from Edo State. But hey, Rivers is the first conversation we'll be having. There are two things that happened today. If you heard the governor giving a charge to the commissioners. Those commissioners, at the very height of their political feud, I mean the governor and his predecessor, FCT Minister, former Governor Nyesom Wike, some commissioners resigned from the cabinet, about 8 or 9 of them. And then the president broke out a truce, some form of a peace pact. And part of it was that they will be back to the cabinet. Well, the House of Assembly had screened them, and everybody was waiting whether indeed the governor will swear them in to see how that plays out. Yesterday, the governor's election was affirmed by the Supreme Court. And today, just less than 24 hours, the governor has finally sworn in those commissioners that were renominated. So we're going to talk about this in terms of what the law says and all of that, as well as what was going on in the State Assembly. While that was happening, the State Assembly, they frowned at the fact that the governor withheld assent to 4 bills they sent to him, which were reeled out, and they override, more like override the governor's refusal to assent to those bills. And now they passed it into law, and it's quite a historic move. So this kind of suggests that it's all really well with the politics in Rivers State. I'm being joined in the program to talk about this by a senior advocate of Nigeria who is joining us via Zoom, Mr. Adeleke Agbola. Mr. Agbola, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Me today. Good evening.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So I'm sure you may have been following the development in Rivers State. So my first thought will be, what is your take on this particular development in the state?
Well, not entirely surprising, because the peace that we've had in Rivers State in the past couple of months is like the peace of the graveyard. Efforts have been made to douse the tension between the governor and his political godfather, Nyesom Wike, Honorable Nyesom Wike. But it appears that the solution has not yet been found. But it's expected that there will be frictions here and there, and everybody is trying to assert his own power as to what goes on in Rivers State. But the governor has to tread carefully, because when majority of the members of the House of Assembly are not on the same wavelength with the governor, it can portend serious dangers for the peace and security in Rivers State. Because I will not be surprised if efforts are made to impeach him.
Some people are saying that this appears like some sort of a forced marriage, as suggested by some. Do you hold that view?
Please, can you repeat that question again, please?
I got your first take, and I'm sure everybody got that perspective, but I want to dig deeper, because some people are saying that this appears like a forced marriage. I mean, getting back the people that had voluntarily resigned for personal reasons or for whatever reasons they resigned, and then this peace pact is one of the reasons why they are being brought back into the cabinet. Does this look like a forced marriage in your view, given the perspective of some people?
Well, don't forget, both the governor, the members of the House of Assembly, and the commissioners were on the same political divide just about 4 or 5 months ago. What has happened is that there have been fissure in their relationship. So the marriage itself was not the one that is forced. It's the reconciliation after both parties have voluntarily separated that is the problem now. And we have to be careful not to escalate the situation. The political actors must find a way, in the interest of the people of Rivers State, to find a way to work together. Because especially on the part of the governor, he has to suspend that. He has to find a way to accommodate these divergent interests that are working against him. The commissioners are back. They resigned apparently on principle, because the their main sponsor into government, was having problems with the governor. So it become impractical for them to stay. So there's apparently a truce, and they are back. So we just have to watch and see the body language, how they're going to work together. Because even before they resigned, our understanding was that there was a problem between them, because the governor we were told was not in a position to instruct them, the commissioners. So there must be a little bit of give and take on both sides, because the interest being served is not the personal interest of the governor, it's not the personal interest of the commissioner, it's not the personal interest of the legislators, it's not with the personal interest of Honorable Nyesom Wike, it's the interest of the River State. So if all of them have the interest of the River State together, you can work together, because people have been brought in from opposing sides. We've had in the past some governments, we call them government of national unity. Why can't we have a government of state unity? Even because they are all friends. The Yoruba will say it's because of the fight that ordinary song becomes a war song. It is, they can find a way to work together. The marriage was, because when people are married, they must remember their initial love affair before they were separated. Now that they are back, they must work on it.
Leonard Silk, I wanted to find out is there anything the law says about this particular issue, just out of curiosity?
No, because theoretically speaking, the governor has the power to hire and fire his commission. They are all, I mean, the only person who could not fire is his deputy. Both of them were elected on the same ticket. So if he wants to remove the governor, the deputy governor, he must go through the state assembly and ask the court to confirm, to follow the process of the removal. But for the commissioners, he can remove them, they can sack them. But his hands are tied. I don't envy him, because it's like he's in government, but it's not in power. So they must also not. I will urge the member of the House Assembly and the commissioners not to make him look completely dumb, because he's still the governor. He's in a position to cause a lot of trouble if they don't manage it. And it's the people of River State that will suffer for it. So,
all right, let's bring in my second guest here, joining us from Abuja Studio, Leonard Silk, because we're going to get your perspective as far as the law is concerned. We've been joined in our Abuja Studio by public affairs analyst, Mr. Jide Ojo. Mr. Ojo, thank you so much for coming on the program. All right, I understand in a moment he will be joining us. Leonard Silk, let me come back to you. Now, there's some perspective on this particular issue of rehiring, as you will, in this particular case. How will it affect governance at the end of the day? Because some people are feeling like this is the governor being watched from the inside.
It's a very curious situation. And I don't think in the political history of Nigeria, we've had this kind of experience where the governor is almost completely powerless, because it's not in control of the state assembly. And the curious one is that it's not even in control of his own executive council. We've had situations before where a governor is elected and his party is in minority in the state assembly. It has happened before. We remember the case of Balarabe Musa in Kaduna State or those days. But you remember what happened to Balarabe Musa in the end? Balarabe Musa was impeached. What governors do normally when they don't have control of their own House Assembly is to work on those legislators to decamp to their party. What is interesting in respect of this particular one is that he started with a majority, and he has now, because officially he has only about 4 members that are in his own support in a house of about 30 members.
No, Leonard Silk, I'm talking about, I mean, for the cabinet, not the House of Assembly. We're going to come to the issue of the House of Assembly in a bit.
Yes.
I mean, being watched from inside, from the cabinet.
Yes, that is a problem. It's all part of the same larger issue. Because if he is in control of the state assembly, he will not have problem with ESCO, because he'll be able to shoot those who are going to be working with him. But we know with what has happened today that he has to tread very carefully. And so he needs to go and pick out his political sagacity to work with this. These are his friends. Don't forget. We should not forget that. I visit Port Harcourt regularly. We know all of them before, and we know that they all belong to the same camp. They must find a way, and that's where the elders, leaders in that community, in that state, people like OCG Okosha, people like Dr. Peter Odili, they must find a way to bring these people together, so that, because I cannot imagine a governor who has almost all his commissioners are not his own appointed. They don't work for him. And he does not believe in the Godfather that has appointed them. So they must find a way to reconcile. Because I keep on emphasizing the target, because people, when we go into government in Nigeria, it is not for personal aggrandizement. It's not supposed to be for personal aggrandizement. It's supposed to be to serve the interests of the people. So if the interest of the people is what is paramount in politics, then it should not really matter whether you belong to one faction or the party or the other. They are all PDP members until recently. So they should find a way. And importantly, they are all from Rivers State. So there should be no war. They should find a way of working together. Because if it continues...
My apologies for cutting in. I understand Mr. Ojo has joined us. Mr. Ojo, thank you for your patience and for coming on the program.
It's my pleasure. Good evening.
Yeah, thank you so much. Let me pick it up from where the learned Sikh had mentioned something before we dovetail into other issues concerning this development in Rivers State. He had called it, he doesn't envy the position of the governor as far as this issue is concerned. He said that the governor's hands are tied. Some are considering it a forced marriage. I don't know what you think about this swearing in of renominated commissioners, because everybody was watching on the sideline, which is why we call it a battle around the peace pact, to see whether this will happen or not and how it's going to play out in the polity eventually.
Thank you, Geoffrey. I think for Governor Fubara, obviously he's not a politician. He's a member of the civil service in Rivers State. And I think when people do not have political sagacity, this is sometimes what they get themselves into. What is playing out in Rivers State is similar to what happened under Governor Akinwumi Ambode in Lagos, who was also a former Accountant General of Lagos State, and not being politician was favored and was made the governor. You recall all the problems he had in the lead up to seeking re-election. The actual fact about Rivers is that the governor have not been able to make his State House of Assembly members happy. They are angry with him, and they are not pretending that they are happy with him. And he needs to do what other governors do. The learned Sikh talk about states where the governor is even in a minority. When Peter Obi was the governor of Anambra State, I think almost all the majority of members of the Anambra State House of Assembly were from PDP. He was from ABGA. And he was able to navigate his way through and also got re-elected in a state where he was, he as a governor belongs to a different party, All Progressive Grand Alliance, and majority member of the State House of Assembly were PDP members. So I think Governor Fubara should stop grandstanding. He does not have, he's like a general without troop. And when I say without troop, it's not like the job people are not behind him or the Rivers people are not behind him. But I'm talking metaphorically and politically. How can you watch and 27 out of 31 members of your party are able to hold you to ransom to the point of, impeachment threat. How many times has he met with these lawmakers since they were inaugurated? They complained that their money due to them has not been given to them. It's an independent arm of government. Don't forget, Jeffrey, that there have been 2 alterations to the Constitution giving state houses of assembly and state judiciary financial autonomy. So, if you look beyond the facade, beyond the surface, you may want to wrongly accuse FCT Minister Nyesom Wike as being the one behind his travails. But if you dig down, you may find out that the governor himself hasn't reached out, he has not extended the olive branch to the lawmakers. Now, they lost 1 member to death. Honorable Edison Eye has resigned. That's out of 31. You only have 2 members, or thereabout, 2 or 3 members who are suspended alongside with Eye that you can say are with the governor. Otherwise, how did they manage to get 2/3 to override the veto of the governor? So I am looking at this as a political scientist that Governor Fubara needs to learn political engineering. If he's able to learn, he will survive and he will have a very good time. All he needs to do is to have regular meetings with his state lawmakers, listen to them, meet them at their point of needs, and see whether there will be no change in the political temperature of Rivers State, whether the frosty relationship will not melt. But for you to be listening to those who want the Hawks in Rivers, who are waiting in the wings to capitalize and profit from the chaos, you will continue to live like a lame duck. I congratulate Governor Fubara for winning at the Supreme Court, but he needs to learn how to navigate the landmines. Now he knew that these 9 commissioners are not with him. They belong to, they have divided loyalty. How do you ensure that you are able to woo them and make friendly overtures to them, carry them along, and make sure that they don't cause trouble? In politics, it is said that you bring your enemy closer to you. Not that you distance yourself. So, and in politics, there is no permanent enmity. There is only one thing that is permanent, which is interest. Friendship is not permanent. He knew how he won the primaries of the party. He knew who paid the bills to make him the governor. He knew that, you know, there was, I don't have an independent verification, but the rumor may has it that somebody paid for the nominations of all of them that contested. And the popular adage is that he who pays the piper dictates the tune. So what I'm saying is that the crisis that ensued in Rivers since October last year through to this January is manageable, and he can control the situation. He needs to reach out and make peace with his legislator. He needs to reach out and make peace with those commissioners, not that you develop cold feet with them, not that you keep them in abeyance. You need to bring them close, listen to their grievances, see what you can do ameliorate the situation. Otherwise, this will be unhealthy for the state.
Mr. Ojo, before we move on to other issues concerning this issue, and I get back to the Leonard Silk, I know you had explained a few things, but where does it really start from? Because it's like a situation in a box. It is clear that where this commissioner's loyalties lie, it is very clear with the actions that happened in the past few months. And not just that, is having a face-off with the House of Assembly is the fact that they are also in another political party. So do you see this as a quagmire, or is something he can walk through if he's ready to walk through it? I know you've explained, but I just needed to dig deep further.
What stops him from even defecting to APC? What stops Fubara himself from defecting to APC?
Is that, in your view, is that the only option he has now?
When No, that's not the only option. That's not the only option. That's not the only option. Don't get me wrong. I'm only saying it's one of the options. But I've also highlighted other options. It can work. I gave you the example of how Peter Obi survived in Anambra. That's why belonging to the the party that has minority member in the State House of Assembly. And that is not peculiar to him. There have been several states where they you can see in Plateau State. In Plateau State, PDP has 16 members out of 24. And APC has 8. And you can see that with the court decision, majority has become minority now. So what I'm saying is that ability to navigate through this, I'm not saying he should defect. I'm only canvassing that if almost all the lawmakers have defected to APC and they are retaining their seats, as it were, he could consider, just like Bello Matawale did in 2019-2020, after becoming governor, he decided to defect to the ruling party. And even when he lost re-election bid, he's been accommodated as a minister of the federal Republic.
All right, Mr. Ojo.
But that is not what I want to canvass. What I'm canvassing majorly is that Lana Sik has talked about elders in rivers like OCJ Okocha, like Dr. Peter Odili, like several other eminent personality, traditional rulers, religious leaders in the state who can also help them to mend fence. But primarily, it needs to sound out each of those lawmakers. It needs to have private discussion with each of those commissioners. What is it that is their grievances that made them to resign? What is it that made them to defect? Can he meet them? It's a win-win situation I need to foster. If he's able to foster a win-win situation, even if he stays in PDP, he will still have the loyalty of the members of the assembly and the commissioners.
Let me get back to the Leonard Sik. I want to pack as many questions as possible because we're running out of time. Leonard Sik, let me come back to you. There is another big elephant in the room. This was one of the issues that people were looking at, the cabinet members being recalled. The other big issue is the issue of representing the budget. Remember that the budget had been presented to a House of 4 led by Hie, who has now resigned. And the governor has actually assented, signed the budget into law, which is now an act of law, 800 billion naira. But the assembly members had complained that given the pact that was brokered by the president, he has to represent that budget. But the challenge here is that a court, a federal high court, had given an order nullifying the action of the governor in signing that budget. They nullified it. Less than 24 hours, another court, concurrent jurisdiction, in fact, within the same building, we understand, said everybody should maintain status quo. So I don't know. When it comes to representing the budget, with this feud going on, where does he go from here? I mean, the governor. Leonard Silk?
Thank you. Yeah. It's an interesting conundrum that two different courts will give two different interpretations as to what the law is. But don't forget the second court. The first court nullified the budget that was accepted by the governor, and the second one said maintain status quo. It depends on the time, because in this kind of situation, what was the status quo as at the time the second judge made his pronouncement? So you have to dig deep to find out who delivered his judgment first. If the judgment nullifying the act, the budget was delivered first, then the status quo was the nullified budget. But that is just picking a straw. The truth is that the governor has to be politically mature. It is going to be difficult to sustain that budget in the face of opposition by about 24 members of the State Assembly. So the governor has to represent, and if that is done, I believe the commissioners to implement those laws are the ones now that are in alliance with the members of the State Assembly. It's still part of the larger issue that where do we go from there? The governor is being bossed into a corner, and he must not allow himself to be removed unceremoniously. He has to reach out to everybody, both within and outside Rivers State, to be able to maneuver. Because it's a very serious situation that he has lost control of the levels of government in Rivers State. So for him now, my friend Mr. Ojo said it's a lame duck. It's more like a lame duck government. Yes, but he can make himself. He can power himself out of this hole that he has been. Whether he dug it himself or was thrown into it is a matter for another day. Because if he has remained loyal to the political government, this may not have happened. But also, it is extremely irritating for a lot of people that you will be elected into a position in your name, and you will not be able to take any single action on your own without having to consult somebody. So the government also has to lay down some law. There's some principles that, okay, this is you are free to do this in respect of these matters, but these are the core areas that you cannot go into. You see, they say who wants to dine with the devil must have a very long spoon, and for some of us who are in the sideline, we are amused because when the going was good, these people were carving empires for themselves, and suddenly if
I may butt in, Leonard, sir, I understand we're running out of time. I would have asked questions about some provisions of the Constitution, because there's still the arguments of the defection and all of that. When you look at Section 91, Section 120, Section 121, Section 109, it's a gamut of issues around legislation. But let me get to you, Mr. Ojo, before I come back to the Leonard Sek as we wrap up. This will be the last set of questions. What political future, Mr. Ojo, do you see for Governor Sim Fubara? Some are saying that for doing some of the things he has done is a display of cowardice, and he may have lost the people. On the other hand, he has also broken trust with, quote-unquote, his political godfather, Nyesom Wike. Where do you see this going for him politically as a politician? How far can he survive?
It's about negotiation. Is he ready to negotiate? Behind the scene, let me give you an instance. Why did the majority lawmaker in Oyo State remove Governor Rashidi Ladoja around 2006 or thereabout? It's because he failed to settle them. And he lost office for 11 months before the Supreme Court was able to reinstate him back to office while Governor Alao Akala, took charge. What he needs to do, he knows what he needs to do. Whether he's ready to do it is a different thing. I've given you scenario. It's not the first. I said, as an executive governor, with an 800 billion naira budget, you can settle your way out of any crisis. And I'm being very sincere here. If you make your lawmakers happy, they will swing, they would dance to your tune. You will have them singing your praise. What many people are not talking about is what is the cause of this whole brouhaha. The lawmakers are saying what is due to us, you have not given us. You are breathing down our neck. You want to destroy the legislative chamber. So if he excuse all of that, the point is the president, he has gone to the president 2 times.
Okay.
And the part of the truth is that he will secure his seat, that he will not be impeached. But even if he's not impeached, he can settle his way out of this whole crisis.
Okay.
Make himself happy, make his godfather happy, make the lawmakers happy, and pay attention to what the gladiators in the states are talking about. If he's able to do that, knowing full well that he doesn't have the structure to his advantage, the political structure is not to his advantage at this point, he needs to stoop to conquer.
Okay, that's a good place. Leonard Silk, just 30 seconds, please. Your last take on this particular issue. I would have gone into the issue of the overriding of what he refused to assent to. Just 30 seconds, your last take, because we're totally out of time, sir.
Thank you. Well, the truth is that we are living in very interesting times, and we are going to see more of these problems in the coming weeks. How the government navigates the issue, because the balance of power are tilted against him. I navigate the issue in determining whether he will survive or not. The issue of people defecting, it is the speaker who will declare a position vacant, and now the speaker is part of the people who have defected. So it's going to be interesting. The law is going to be tested. So I wish Fubara well. More importantly, I wish the people of Rivers State well, because when Taliban's fighting,
all right, let us say my sincere apologies. Never intended to cut you off, but totally out of time. We're due for a break. Thank you so much. Adeleke Agbola, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, who joined us via Zoom, and Mr. Jide Ojo, Public Affairs Analyst, who joined us from our Abuja studios. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on the program. We appreciate your insight on this particular issue.
Thank you for having us.
My pleasure.